in terms of our ecosystem here. We have a pump on the day, but obviously we are still in deep blood territory here. We have Pulse just rallied up to 60% below the sack rate, sentence that I'm sure many people didn't think we would be uttering 3 months or whatever after the launch. PulseX, everybody loves to hate it right now after everybody loved to love it for years. It is about 90% still below the sack rate, of course. We got Hex on PulseChain at just over 0.8 of a penny, and Hex on ETH at that half rate, basically at 0.4 of a penny. So, yeah, a little bit of a rally for the PulseChain ecosystem today. What do you make of it, Ewok? Did you FOMO in? I know you were looking at some DCA buying, as was I the last few days when we had a nice dip. What do you think? And let's talk about this idea of like September. Look out for September. Oh, the blood's coming in September. What do you think about that idea? Are you still trying to keep some cash on the side to see what we have coming here? What do you think for our ecosystem over the next month or so?
Yeah, I mean, I can still see a little more downturn, a little sideways action. It could get a little worse, could get a little better. Like it's going to chop back and forth. I don't know if these lows that we've put in will stick, or if we'll go a little bit deeper. I think we'll definitely go back and test them. But yeah, I mean, the way September has played out before. I don't think the contrarian play. It's not worth it to go hog wild right now if you've got some capital to put in.
Yeah.
DCA like normal. You get some drops and take advantage of them, but I don't think you're missing out on anything. At least I think we're looking into November, even December until things start to get a little green. It's just the way the cycle goes. Yeah, I mean, I have some cash set aside. I was waiting for it to clear. I don't even know if it has yet or not. I forgot to look today. But I'm preparing to get a little bit more in at these prices, and maybe we do get another dip. A lot of people talk about this PulseX thing, and how the buy and burn is not really doing a whole lot for the ecosystem. And we just have to remember how many people sacrificed, how many more people sacrificed for that than Pulse. There was exponentially a lot more people, and a lot of them had to wait 2 years and over leveraged and probably sold. That's why we're seeing such a heavy dip, and it looks like the buy and burn isn't doing much, but there's also not a whole lot of volume. So just things to keep in mind. Be patient. It's that, you said it earlier, the depression part of the cycle. It beats you up. It literally, just when you think you're moving a little bit forward, it pulls right back. So, you've got to prepare for that until we start to see some real green candles, and, everybody will be in such a better mood by that point.
They definitely will, yeah. And there's we might as well talk about the PulseX thing here because we were going to here in a little bit. And you just hit the nail on the head, Ewok. I was watching that great stream yesterday with Corey Costa and Axis Alive, two real strong personalities within the community that everybody loves and values what they do for sure. So shout out to those guys. But Axis brought up a great point. And one thing I like about him, him being kind of a TA guy. It's just going to be cold-blooded logic, basically, and that's all he's going to give you. And I think he's 100% right about this. Is people are throwing out like the buy and burn narrative failed and all these things. And again, yes, tons of people were maybe irrationally, shilling PulseX to be it's going to outdo Pulse and all this stuff and the power of the buy and burn and everything prior to launch, which I agree with you, Ewok. Yeah, we don't have the volume for the buy and burn that is taking place that has been very impressive to reflect in the price yet. Yeah. But plain and simple, the answer to this question is what you already said, Ewok. It's in the math. 3 times the amount of people, 3 times the money was put into PulseX in a sacrifice phase, a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point, compared to Pulse. And you know what? That ratio has pretty much held up the entire time. It is widening a bit right now. It's 1 to 3.75 or so right now, but it's been 1 to 3 or like a 0.26 ish ratio, Pulse to PulseX, for most of the duration of the launch of this chain. So I'm not saying that means, you're all wrong and PulseX has actually held up well. I'm not at all saying that. I mean, obviously everything looks like shit right now, but in relation to what the holders were, everything that's happening right now is just plain math. Like the people that waited that long, there are more people in PulseX, more people in PulseX to sell. The price is down further. What do you expect? So
yeah, well, I never thought about it that way, but the ratio being set versus the number of extra people that were in it opposed to
exactly.
PulseChain. Like I never even really logically thought about it in that sense, but it's working out to be pretty darn close.
It's literally all it is. And
Yeah.
I really do think it's mostly that simple because, whether you did sacrifice for Pulse or PulseX, we know people that sacrifice for Pulse have been waiting longer, obviously, but it was also a smaller amount of people. That's about what it's been. 3 times the amount of people, 3 times the money was in PulseX, and we're just seeing it reflected in the price chart. So I think, if anything, that should give people solace that are maybe worried about PulseX and are super long PulseX, or maybe talked up PulseX and nothing else for 2 years or something like that. We, like you said, the smart contract is the smart contract. The buy and burn is the buy and burn. And even though there was a little snafu with that, and that's been, since resolved, it is still working. The metrics are there underlying. There's not enough activity on the chain yet because it is September of 2023 and nobody cares about crypto right now.